And we're back. It's good to have Kenny Hyder back here again. We're going to be talking through what feels like we're going to be talking through the API, but it feels like the start of real golf season is starting. Am I right on that, Kenny?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This
Let's
is
go.
the time. We got golf. We don't have to worry about too many late scratches. I shouldn't say that, knock on wood, because it's I've been stuck in basketball mode, which has been phenomenal and fruitful. And again, huge shout out to Sheets for winning the big one last night again, for chopping at the guy as a freaking monster. But golf wise, this is a look. We got the elevated event. We got the players next week. Just
2 weeks.
we're leading it. Is in 2 weeks? 2 weeks. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then we get into the Masters and what, just a couple weeks after that.
Yep. Yep.
So a lot of big stuff going on. Good tournaments out there. Going pretty heavy. I had one of my worst weeks last week, but I'm just willing to throw it away and move towards the next one. You're going to have those, especially on those weird fields where it's not like I didn't play. Who ended up winning it in the end?
What's his name? Oh my God, I can't believe
I
already.
forgot who it was too. Well, either way, he made the cut on the number, and then shot 7 under the last day, and literally sort of came out of nowhere to end up coming back and taking those. That just happens with those weird other events. But we're dealing with real high end golf now, and I'm really pumped up to see a great field. Kenny, any overall thoughts? Well, I guess first of all, I should say welcome back. Great to have you. Any overall thoughts before we get into it?
Yeah, it's always exciting to get all the stars back up in the lineup, and seeing all the best golfers go at it together, especially on such a fun and iconic course to watch. So it should be an exciting week. I've heard some chatter here and there about some weather. I don't know how I feel necessarily about those predictions, but I do expect it to be pretty difficult this week. We shouldn't be getting any 59s or anything like that coming out in opening rounds or anything this week. So, should be a pretty good test. And for me, it's good. I'm kind of looking forward to going back to some old trusty names that, are really great. So it should be a fun week to kind of slice and dice some combos here.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I'm still trying to figure out what to do with the weather too. I still have a little bit more research to do, but I have a pretty good idea of what I want to do overall in terms of who I'm playing. Obviously, if there's any major weather edges, I'm going to have to make some changes. But I'll share my screen and we'll go. And we like to do different tiers. We talk about it that way. It's kind of weird. We only have 3 players above 10K and just a slew of awesome players in the 9K range. But we'll start off right there, I think. Kenny, who do you like the most of these top 3? We haven't seen Xander this year, right?
Nope. Well, no, we haven't. He's making his debut after back injury surgery, I think. So, so let me ask you this, and this was something I was thinking about because last time that Scotty and Rory played together, Rory won at Pebble, and obviously they're both really popular. And Scotty is Scotty, but in the context of the 2 most expensive and definitely best golfers in the field being here this week, how often in other sports on other slates can you play the top 2 most expensive guys together, or does it is it pretty common?
It's usually difficult, but the NBA, with so many people resting and stuff, you can kind of do it. Like in baseball, it's pretty tough to play Shohei and I don't know whether even Bryce Harper. That's not the next best player. Aaron Judge and Shohei would be hard to play in the same lineups. You can occasionally do it, but it's kind of tricky.
Yeah,
and it's going to be very tricky to get those guys in.
So that's that was kind of my thought, because we constantly talk about Scotty should definitely be the most expensive golfer, but is he expensive enough still? For his expectation,
right.
And I know that some people have some doubts just because he hasn't won yet this season, but hey, it's like we just said, it's really the start of the season is now. You know what I mean? Last year he was a psycho and won a couple times already by this point, but that doesn't have to happen every year. You know what I mean?
Right.
And my thought is just kind of like, well, first of all, as we already pretty much discussed, every time Scotty's in the field, no matter what, he's usually in the winning lineup, but that can change. Like in the case at Pebble when Rory won, definitely you wanted to have Rory over Scotty there. So and actually at Pebble, I played them together a lot. And I'm thinking I might just do that again this week because I really don't think I need to get onto Xander. He's projected to be the lowest owned in this range, and he's also the biggest question mark. Rory's been on a tear already this season, and Scotty is Scotty. So, and a couple of initial hand builds, I was just like, oh, well, what does it look like if I let's just play them both. Like, don't make me pick. And really the only problem I have with that is that it kind of limits my exposure that I want to have to Oberg, which, is not in the 10K range, but it's the next highest guy. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of my thought at the top here is just pretty much start Scotty, Rory and see what happens. And then probably I'll end up, rotating in Oberg from those, with those two or
mm-hmm.
Swapping them in and out. So really probably not going to be on to Xander at all. And going to be trying to cram as much of Rory and Scotty as I can. Probably will naturally just end up with more Rory because he's one projected to be lower owned and two, $1,200 cheaper. So,
yeah, and for what it's worth, like it depends on which golf projections are tough, man, and then all projections are tough. But like, if we look at SaberSim's projection and you tell me Xander's under 10%, I'm immediately going to perk up and go, okay. Well, that's that. Even let's just forget my thoughts on it, but I'm willing to take a chance just as he's, every bit as good as he was. And by the way, if we were having this conversation before, it wouldn't be Rory and Scotty as the best players. It would have been Xander and Scotty based on last year for sure. But then I look over and I look at Sheets' projection, and he's got him at almost 17% ownership. In which case, I think that making a more of a fade makes a lot more sense. Because it's a big gap between the 9% and the 17%. I'm curious to see where it ends up. That's what we've got for right now. Mm-hmm. I'm always going to prefer Scotty over like Rory for the most part, with a very few exceptions. And usually it's because there's a huge discount of some sort. I think playing those two guys together, unfortunately, will lead you into similar builds as other people. Now, how do those similar builds happen when everybody sub 7K is, basically spread out ownership wise? So maybe you can find ways to get unique there, but I would encourage, if you're going to play those two together, to maybe take a little bit more of a stand on somebody on the lower end who's a little bit more maybe off the board. That would be just a strategy thing that I would consider. And I also am going to poke back and say, I'm not sure that Rory is the second best golfer in the world. Maybe he's totally back, by the way, and maybe he's right there, and who knows? Maybe he ends up having the best year. But the second best golfer in the world by the end of the year, in my opinion, is a guy in the next tier, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I as of right now, I'm sort of content to let it roll with Rory and Scotty at the moment. I'm not making any huge things, but I also don't think. I mean, it's hard to say, hey, look, not playing any of these 10K plus guys in an elevated event, but there's a lot of guys down in this 9K range that make a lot of lineups look a lot better. So. I guess I'll transition into that one. What are you looking at down in the 9Ks?
So as I already alluded to, I really like Oberg. I think he probably has a good shot to win it. He's in great form, and he also is a golfer that's great on tough courses, and he's long and good out of thick rough and all of that stuff. Interestingly, the initial build that I ran through SaberSim and ran the sims and everything with exposures and all that, Colin Morikawa came out by far my highest exposure guy, which I'm definitely not going to end up on that because I don't like that at all. But I do think that it was interesting that SaberSim popped him up by far and away as my most used guy in that initial build. But other than Oberg, I'm really also going to be on to your guy, Tommy Fleetwood, this week. I think in general, I'm going to, I'm going to like, it really just comes down to like some of the British kind of crowd, right? The Tommy Fleetwoods and Shane Lowry's and stuff like that. The guys that are good on long, tough courses with thick rough. And if it does get blistery and whatnot, they're good in weather. You know what I mean? So really, those are going to be my two biggest plays, Oberg and Fleetwood. And, it's kind of just an effect of me liking both Scotty and Rory so much that I just won't probably have a ton of exposure to the rest of these guys.
Yeah. And it's again, depends on how you're building, because so I love Oberg. I actually think that Oberg is, I'll have more Oberg than I do of probably Rory this week personally. I just want to be ahead on this. I genuinely think he might be the only person. Now, we know Scotty's the best golfer in the world, but by the end of the year, if there was going to be a conversation with another golfer of who's the best in the world, I think Oberg is the most likely person.
I agree.
To have that conversation with. So that's where I'm at. I absolutely love Fleetwood here. And I'll just say to everybody, if you play him, don't play him. You don't usually want to play him on the day, watch him shoot like, 9 under on day one or whatever. But he always starts off slow, and then he ends up, you look at the end of the day, he's always top 10, top 5, whatever. Thought he was the best player a couple weeks ago, actually, at the tournament. He just had a bad first day. But he was just absolutely awesome. So Oberg and Fleetwood will be probably my highest owned golfers in the slate. Maybe Scotty ends up in the same range, but I am going to go out of my way to just make sure I have a ton of these guys. And I'm talking about, like, I might go, it's golf, so there's high variance, but I was thinking like 50% of each of them. I really wanted to go heavy on it. I also am sort of interested in the idea of just because of ownership, again, these are not the guys who have been the best or whatever, but Hideki here, I think, is kind of interesting at low ownership. I think Finau and Sam Burns are both kind of interesting, and it's really just an ownership play. But I will probably like to go overweight those types of things. And, I'll probably have to end up being a little under on Scotty and Rory just because I want to. And look, I still end up with one of them in most of my lineups, maybe. But I think I want to try and get some of this low-owned exposure to some of these, the Sam Burns, the Tony Finau, and the Hideki just on ownership. The one who I've heard the most that everyone thinks is a good long shot bet to win is Justin Thomas. I'm not sure I'm there yet, but I do like the idea of, again, this 9K range maybe being more of my priority and maybe taking a little bit of a slightly underweight stance on the very top range is probably what I'm going to try to do. Just because I do think that enough of these guys can get there. Look, we know Scotty's always in the winning lineups and all these things. I just want to take some chances and just believe that it's golf and that you can win a lineup that you don't have Scotty Scheffler. And maybe by the end of it, I'll post all my exact exposures for everybody in our site members. But that's sort of where I'm at right now. I really like the idea of being overweight that 9K range personally.
Nice. I like the idea, just to follow up, I like the idea of Justin Thomas as well, but not as much Hideki, just because Hideki doesn't really have the length and the accuracy. I don't know. I think it's a little bit of a riskier play, but I'm also predisposed to not liking Hideki because I've been on the bad end of withdrawals too many times.
That's fair enough. Although if there was one to withdraw, it's probably less likely a little bit in the elevated event at least.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
he's the most likely still, but he's less likely. Yeah. All right. So here's the interesting range, because no one's playing this range. So if this is another strategy thing about what I was thinking. And look, if you just get like a 10th and a 12th out of Scotty and Rory this week, which is totally possible, and Xander, let's say none of them crack the top 7, that's possible. You have a really interesting way of building that's going to be unique, because this range is basically being forgotten about from an ownership standpoint, this whole 8K range. So with that said, what do you like here, if anything?
So yeah, I like a couple plays. I'll be going back to Mav McNeely this week, who I've just been on all season. He's had a great run and he's only getting better. He hasn't had the greatest history here, but I think he's a much different golfer than he was any of the past few seasons that he's played. So I'll be back onto him this week. I also like Russell Henley again this week, who's just putting up solid numbers week after week, and also has great history here. Got T4 last year, and has made the cut. Looks like every other time he's played it. So I really like him, and I'm kind of warming up to this Russell Henley thing, just because, look, even if he is like the most, or one of the higher projected owned guys in the range, he's not one of those names that people go, ooh, like Will Zalatoris. People are going to jump onto Will Zalatoris just because he's popular. You know what I mean? Right. People are going to jump onto Daniel Berger because he's popular and also had a good week last week, which, we discussed last week. But I think Russell Henley will, probably not see as high ownership here just because he is at the top of the range. So I like him a lot here as well. And then also, I already mentioned previously Shane Lowry this week. I'm going to like these guys who are long off the tee and good on tough courses, and he definitely fits that mold. Along with also, like I said, just keeping it in the UK, Bobby Mack. So another guy who's got plenty of distance, can hit it out of the rough great, and also good on tough longer courses. So those will be my my main plays here.
I hear you. I'm interested in the Bobby Mack a little bit myself. I didn't get there on my first runs, but I'm going to bump him up a little bit because I like that idea. My favorite in this range, and again, I'm willing to embrace as much variance as you can give me. It's golf. I will be well over the field on Viktor Hovland. I know you're looking at a range of outcomes type of guy. It's one of those things though, where if he does find any part of it, look, what, a year ago from right now, he was 9,800 right in this range. He was basically Oberg before, you know what I mean? The previous Oberg. I think Hovland could easily be 1,500 more expensive if he was back to himself. Now, there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of things being said, which is what's keeping his ownership down. I would like to be ahead on him. I want to be over where everyone is projecting him at. In fact, I'm going to bump him up just a little bit more. I just think that there's so much upside as far as that play goes. It's not going to surprise me, and the low ownership has got me sucked in. I agree with you about Shane Lowry, and I agree with you about Russell Henley. I like all three of those guys. Henley, it feels like you should just be playing like 25% of them every week. Like,
yeah,
he's always, and he never's like disappointing you.
He's super consistent. He's level, and he can win. Like he doesn't have those choke moments.
Right. The other one I'm just going to throw out there, because again, this is my long shot plays in this range. If another guy who, if he finds it and plays his best game, is one of the best guys in the world, depending on the week, high range of outcomes, similar to me to Hovland, is Wyndham Clark. I think there's plenty of upside for Wyndham Clark here. So Hovland, Henley, the highest ones will be Hovland and Lowry, but then Henley and McIntyre and Wyndham Clark would be the other three that I'm strongly considering.
I initially was thinking that I would be pretty heavy on Wyndham Clark. I'm a little wishy on it, but I do think, I heard some other, talk about people comparing this week to, playing similar to like a US Open, which he obviously won one. So right. Should be a good fit theoretically there. The one thing I'll say, I like the, everything you had to say about Hovland, but just to make a note there, I do see him in some sources as the highest projected owned in the range. So he might not necessarily get that.
Let me just take it, because I've got a few different projection sets that I'm looking at here. And by the way, I want to use this moment also as a way of, let's go back to this. I do want to tell people, it is really great, even just differentiating yourself from other SaberSim users, to have Sheets and Goldie's projections. They've done great for me in golf in general, but both on the ownership side and on the projection side, I think it's, and I sometimes I like to do an average with all their projections with SaberSims. But I'm just taking a look. So Goldie's got Hovland he's got Hovland basically as the right just below Henley, like right there with Henley in terms of ownership. Sheets has got Hovland a little bit lower, and then SaberSim has got Hovland significantly lower. So it is interesting, but I still think, even if you're talking in the 10 to 15% range for a guy at 8,300, how many of these guys do we really think can win the tournament if Scotty plays well, let's just say, or Rory plays well? Hovland is one of them. Wyndham Clark is one of them. The other guys, and by the way, I mean, Berger's looked good. All these other guys look good, and I might have to reconsider stuff, where I have them. I just didn't want to name all the names. But I think if you're talking, and Lowry's another one that could actually just play well enough to compete with those guys, I feel like.
Hey, he was second to Rory at Pebble.
There you go. That's fair enough. Yeah. All right, let's go 7,500 to 7,900.
Okay. So in here, I'm going to be right back to my boy, Michael Kim. I'm just afraid that he's going to be a lot higher owned than he's projected, because I think everyone's going to be onto him this week after last week coming out again, firing and actually having a shot on Sunday. But fortunately wasn't able to get there. But also saw some footage of him yesterday on Twitter. He's got like a real big Twitter presence. He's a great follow. And
yeah, you told me about that before he was even doing all that well.
Yeah.
He started to play well.
Yeah. But I saw him yesterday doing some practice chips out of the rough, and he's like, this is exactly what that work with Greller has helped me for. This is the perfect thing for it. Last week was bullshit. I was like, oh, so he expects himself to have an even better week than he did last week, and he got T6 last week. So Just really, I just don't trust the ownership being low, like I see it. But also, again, this week, back to Ben Griffin. And, when it came to, my initial kind of thoughts at the top of the slate with, oh, what about Rory and Scotty together? What does that look like? Well, it turns out with Rory and Scotty together, I can still get Ben Griffin and Michael Kim together.
Oh,
and be feeling real good. So I'm going to be pretty heavy on both of those guys this week. Outside of that, I don't know. I feel like maybe a little bit of Minwoo. But yeah, I'm not really sure other than that. I do think Corey Connors might be interesting just because he has a pretty stellar history here. But he's also just not been in the best form lately. But who knows? It's a new swing. He hasn't played since the Genesis, so probably maybe try to get a little bit of him as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm still always waiting for Fitzpatrick to bounce back. I kind of thought Tom Kim would be a little more popular here. That was just my look, and I was kind of surprised to see the low numbers. So I'm gonna have to revisit that one. It wasn't the guy who I was planning on, like, okay, I'll play less of the field than Tom Kim. Now no one's gonna play him. I might have to reconsider. I agree with you about Ben Griffin. He's probably one of my favorites in this range. I'm probably closer to the field on Michael Kim, but I maybe just because I feel like not that I missed out, just that it feels chasey, but you should be chasey. Like you said, he changed some things, so it's not like a situation where I shouldn't be chasey. Right. Minwoo Lee and Adam Scott both are very interesting to me. Those are probably my favorites, but this is a range where I'm probably under, maybe not even under the field, because I think the field is not even that popular, but I'm not like going crazy over this range. I do think I'll have double digits of Ben Griffin. I think I'll probably end up just in the barely double digits of Minwoo. And Adam Scott is another one that I'm just considering. So I'm still not decided on what I'm doing in that range yet, because again, it's weird. You see from the top, it's really spread out pretty much most places. I just think that the ownership has been really hard to pin down. And you even look at this next range we're about to start talking, you think that, okay, well, hardly anybody's playing the 75 to 79. They're not playing the 8K guys. They're not playing the 7K, low 7K guys. Who the hell are they playing? Is it really going to be this spread out? It won't. It'll go a different direction. Right. I think Ben Griffin is one of those guys, by the way, who's going to pick up steam.
I do too. Yeah.
All right, 7K to 7,400.
Okay. Yeah. So this week, fortunately, there's a couple of guys that I just will kind of faithfully go back to that I've kind of been onto a little bit this season and last. One being JJ Spawn, who I think is a really solid play at 7K flat. He's got plenty of distance. He's been doing well. I mean, he just got tied for second last week.
Did he end up there? That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, there were so many guys packed at the top, at the top.
Yeah, it was really weird.
It was hard to keep track, especially over there was like a 45-minute stretch where it changed like every 3 minutes. It was just like, oh yeah.
I think at one point Knapp was like, it was something like 65% to win on the 12th hole, or 11th hole, but then he triple bogeyed and he went from like 70% to having like 10%, in one hole, which was crazy.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Also, probably we'll go back to a little bit of Gracerman this week. I like the distance that he has. I kind of got onto him last week. He needed to do a little bit better for me to actually make some money. I had basically a break-even week last week. And he was, one of those guys that you had actually mentioned when we were going on the show last week. And I was like, oh, I need to get some of him in. And he ended up being a really good play. So I'll be back to him a little bit. And then other than that, it will be, who was the guy that I liked here? Oh, Davis Thompson, another guy.
You always love him.
Long off the tee, super accurate. Like, he's just got a great game. His, the only thing that worries me is that he's been trending losing strokes on approach, which is going to be more important this week than any time this season so far. But he's missed the cut last week, but I still think I'll be ponying up a little bit this week. It is one of those weird cut thing, like top 50 and or whatever within 10 or whatever the lead.
Mhm.
So there is some cut risk here, but it's not like a full cut where the majority of the guys are getting cut or whatever. So
right.
I'm not too worried about any guys that like missed the cut last week in Florida. You know what I mean?
Right. I got you. Yeah, so it's interesting because I'm on a little bit of a different path in this range. I really like Aaron Rye. I know he's going to have. Look, his ownership is, depending on where you look, is all over the place. I see that you get as low as 5, you get as high as 15 or 20. Oh no, 18 is one I saw somewhere. I don't know where it's really going to end up, but I actually think he'll get a little bit more ownership. I do like Aaron Rye here. Maybe he just plays a little bit faster and doesn't take 20 minutes to putt the ball. You saw that whole thing?
Yeah, I did.
That's my only fear, is that like it gets in his head. Not my only fear. I like Billy Horschel maybe more than the field does here. I'm willing to take a shot on him. It's 7,100. It's totally reasonable. Not necessarily like great always here, but familiar. And again, we're getting into a pretty cheap range. The other one that for me is Gracerman, as you mentioned. I really like Gracerman, and because I'm a glutton for punishment, I will keep taking shots on Cam Young until he finds himself again. Because another one I want to get ahead on, just when he's this cheap. Yeah. We'll have another guy like that where I'm just going to keep beating my head against the wall in the under 7K range in a minute. So I think there's actually a lot of. I mean, look, it's an elevated event, so you got a lot of really good plays in the under 7Ks range that I think are going to be somewhat spread out. Who are you getting to? Because I'm guessing you're gonna have some of them showing up because you're playing Rory and Scotty so much.
Yep. I mean, not a ton of plays, but a couple that I like. I do like Patrick Rogers again this week. He was one of the other guys I've been kind of going to this season, who's been doing really well, putting up great numbers. Also, a guy that has pretty good distance off the tee and all around numbers. I also really like Nick Taylor at $6,700. I think it's great that he is way down here. And it doesn't really even make any sense. Like he's been putting up numbers, and he won this season already. He won the first event of the season. Like, why is he $6,700?
All of his stuff doesn't make any sense to me. I was watching like even what's it called? Why was he not on the President's Cup team last year? And like he was better than like almost everybody else on that team. Like it's really weird. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, really crazy. So, but I imagine that he'll be pretty popular too. But I'm fine with that because this is in these smaller field events, the signature events, everyone's gonna get more ownership just naturally. That's just how it works. Yeah, so but I feel real comfortable with Nick Taylor at 6,700. Also, we'll be going back to JT Poston this week, who also has been just playing solid golf and has just pretty really his only lack is his putter, and I'm just not too worried about that. And then one guy that I will be, it's just such a bummer because I was expecting him to have such a good season, is Benny On, but he's just been playing so terribly lately that I just don't know what to do with him. But I feel like down here at 6,800, this is another one of those guys that, last season would have easily been at the top of the 7K range in this sort of event or something at least, so I don't know, might take a little bit of a shot with him there just because he does also have the edge with the distance off the tee, which is, comes in crucial around the courses like this. So, but no, I wouldn't mark my words on that one. So.
Yeah, I mean, I like a lot of the things you mentioned. I like the Nick Taylor is one of my favorites down here. I also like Poston. I like the Zadenhout. I love Lucas Glover. I'm kind of confused why he's not. Oh, he is getting some more ownership. Okay. Yeah, I really like Lucas Glover down here. Nick Dunlap has been really struggling off the tee, but the rest of his game is actually not so bad. But the one I said I'm a glutton for punishment is I'm going to play Max Homa. So I understand it'll be in the lottery mostly. I get it. I get what we're saying, but we're down to 6,300 here. I believe that he wants to be better. I like the guy, and I think that he just hasn't been right. And when he's right out of the blue, I'd like to get some of that. Joe Highsmith's ownership is way, way much for me. I get it. Oh, Joe Highsmith's who won last week.
He won last week. Yeah.
It's one of the rare times you see a guy win. And now I know he's won and now he's 6,200, but it's one of the rare times you see a guy win and then actually end up like really popular the next week. Usually everything fades after somebody wins in this game. I think that, like, look, I'll take a stab at guys like Pavone, because if you're going to get like less than 0.5% or whatever, maybe it's 1% ownership by the end of the day, it's just an ownership play that I would go there. Mackenzie Hughes is also just like another that, hey, look, we know he's more than capable. It's just, again, it's not the ideal situation. But the one who's the most interesting to me outside of the ones I've already mentioned would be Chris Kirk. I just think I think he's a little bit of a better golfer than a 6,100 range. But I'm going to be playing a lot of these guys and spread out a little bit. But the one that I'm going to be the highest on is probably at this moment going to be, one of Taylor. Oh, I forgot to mention my other one, Harris English. One of Taylor, English, or Poston. Those would be my three favorites.
Nice. I do like the Pavone. He was I guess I didn't realize we're going all the way down to the bottom here, but he's another one of those guys I think is a good course fit for him this week. He obviously won at Torrey last season. I think it's some similarities in courses there, longer, tough, rough, longer course. And then also one I forgot too was Steven Yeager, who I actually really like this week. And I like that he doesn't seem to be drawing a ton of ownership. So just want to chime in on those two as well.
I like that. Yeah, actually, let me grab my, because I don't mind the Yeager idea at all here. Actually, he should be able to be fine. And one thing I love about him is he plays fast. I love it. I love when I watch somebody who plays fast. It makes me feel much more confident in them. All right. Even though I just touted Aaron Rye, who couldn't be more the opposite. I'm going to stop my screen share for this so I can actually look at my numbers right now, because I've got another side thing on the side. But I'm going to stop the share, and we're going to talk through each range, what we're going to pick. So our first thing is going to be, Kenny, who is winning this tournament? You can take the chalk. It's no problem. Totally allowed.
Yeah, I'm going to just say Scotty.
I think that's fair, and I like that you did, because that's going to force me to maybe not get overly cute for my fancy play syndrome and trying to fade more of them. Because I take all these ones. Everybody we name, I'm gonna be overweight on. All right, I am going to say Ludwig Oberg.
Yep, love it.
Second, it would be a second elevated event already.
Yeah.
So he's my pick. All right, who do you like under 10K to top 5?
I'm gonna steal him, Fleetwood.
Well, you're not going to steal him, because I'm going to say him also as well. But I will say his name, because this is my one. I just absolutely love the play. I'm totally in on it. I feel really good about it. So, but if I had to pick another one under 10K, it actually gets a little tricky, because those are the ones I'm like, we've named. I already named Oberg, and the ones I'm most committed to. Top 5. All right, I'll just put a gambly one, even though it's not what I actually believe. It's just, again, if I can't use Fleetwood, my answer is Fleetwood, but I'll put Hovland in there, because he's my other play.
Okay.
Well, I'm taking I'm going for it.
Yeah.
He plays well. He totally reasonable. All right, under 9K to top 10.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Shane Lowry.
All right, I'm just going to take a look at my exposures. Where's my exposure? Where did they go? I had all this. Shane Lowry's a good one. I was probably going to go there if you didn't. Yeah, he's my highest owned one in this range. Huh? How about that? Wow, I'm really struggling with this. I thought we should have said Justin Thomas before for the last answer. You know what? Can I do that? I'm changing it to Thomas, and I'm going to say Hovland for this.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, Hovland. All right, and you said Lowry. All right, under 8K to top 20.
Michael Kim.
All right, and I'm just going to look at my exposure, so I'm getting it accurate, and I want to be consistent with this. Top 20. I'm going to say Adam Scott. All right. Under 7K to make the cut or the best to make the cut, either however you want to look at it.
All right, I'm gonna just go ahead and say, actually, Steven Yeager.
Okay, I thought you were going to go the other route. Ooh, throwing me with the Jaeger. I guess I'm okay. I'll take our guy Nick Taylor then.
Yeah, he would be my other.
Yeah, I like the Jaeger. I'm just gonna make sure I got the. Yeah, I bumped him up a little. Not enough. Let's make him a little higher. All right. So that's it. Then we need a 9K plus guy to. It's missing the cut is going to be tough. One of these guys might. Okay, so the one who finishes the worst from the 9K plus range. How about that?
Yeah, I'll just say, from 9K plus.
Yeah.
Oh shit, Sungjae doesn't quite make it.
I know.
Okay, I'll say. Does it withdrawal count? Because I'll say Hideki.
Okay, yeah, withdrawal. That's the worst. That's the literal worst. So you can do so. Yeah, it should count. I don't feel really great about this because I like him a little bit for tournaments, but I actually do like him for tournaments, but I'll still say Sam Burns. There's just not a whole lot of options.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of faith in him either, but
yeah,
he actually oh no, he's been fine, but
yeah, he's been fine. Nothing special.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. I will post all of my exact exposures, all my core plays, the bets that I think make some sense this week that I've looked at a few of them. I guess I'll throw one of those out for free that I saw that I really liked earlier. I'm just trying to remember the exact. Let me just get the exact odds. Nick Taylor is plus 850 to top 10. That seems like way too high of a number to me. 8.5 to 1 to top 10.
Plus
I don't think
50 to top 10. That's crazy.
Plus 850. Yeah, so 8.5 to 1.
Oh.
But 8.5 to 1 to top 10. You think if we play this tournament 9 times, he doesn't on average get there once? I personally.
Yeah, that seems way thin.
Yeah, so I like the plus 850. I also like the plus 500 on Ben Griffin. All right. Good luck, everybody, this week. Thanks again to Kenny. We'll see you guys in the Discord. And yeah, check out the packages, guys. I mentioned it on our other show. Look, we've been absolutely crushing stuff. Really, we're going to be going up in price soon. We're going to have some other offerings, but you're going to be grandfathered in. So if you're interested in joining us, now would be the time to do it. Anyway, good luck, everybody. And we'll see you guys hopefully at the top of leaderboards this weekend. See the rest of you guys.